Yes, he's got it. Here he comes. Way back to me. It is safe and slammed up. And the doctor made a sensational play. Hunter in front, the front, and they score! And Giroux's coming. Justice fires. Blast and goal! Brady back again. He steps up his head and falls forward. And he fumbles the football, and the Eagles have it.
We welcome you back to the Phillies Sports Hour, brought to you by SeatGeek and Foco here on the Phillies Sports Reports Network. I am Benjamin Goldstein. Joining us today to talk about a little bit of everything is Matt Brown. A lot of news with the Eagles, some Phil's stuff, Sixers confusion. Matt, you're muted right now, but how you doing?
I'm doing great. Just excited for this time of year. We're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the Phillies season, start of baseball season overall. And, football season is gone, but we got March Madness tournament coming up. Those games are always exciting to watch as a sports fan. The NFL draft and the prime offseason is right now. And I'm just getting ready to rock and roll for the summertime, get some better warm weather here, and start watching some Phillies baseball.
It's like that weird couple weeks in March where it's like 60s and 70s, and then in the mornings it's like in the 30s. So, I like the warm, but that cold in the morning is, oh my God.
You're telling me. It's not the best. It's getting up early and going out and working, and it's just not fun. But yeah, it's an enjoyable time right now, I would say. It's getting to that point of the year where everything's starting to roll out and feel good. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, March Madness coming up next week. Opening day, or I guess Tokyo series kind of opening day is next week as well. I think Tuesday, is that the first Tuesday?
I think it's Tuesday and Wednesday. It's 6:10 in the morning, which to any West Coast fans, I feel so sorry. You're watching the Dodgers at 3 in the morning. That's insane. I don't know if I could ever do that. I probably would do it as a Phillies fan, but that's just sounds terrible.
Yeah, I can't even really imagine. It's like you would think they would try something to make it a good time for everybody, but it is what it is. Anyone you're looking at in March Madness, that's get started next week as well.
I am been big on Auburn this entire season. I think they're the deepest team pretty much in the entire tournament. I really like them. Broom, the player of the year, he's really good. But I really like Duke too, but Cooper Flagg, man, we'll see with this ankle injury. Really has to see with him because I don't know how severe it's going to be for them. I really like them. I really like what was another team? I really like St. John's. Rick Pitino is such a great coach in the Big East, and tying with Tom Izzo in Michigan State. Those teams are some of the ones I really like. I think they're going to be going far in this upcoming tournament, but I think Auburn's right now my pick still.
All right, well, we will see what happens with that. Yeah, Cooper Flagg, that's unfortunate. And something else that's unfortunate with the Philadelphia Eagles is, these names that they are losing in free agency. The legal tampering period opened last week. The official new league year is here. Happy New Year, Matt. This is the new year that we celebrate March 12th rather than January 1st. Here's who was leaving the Eagles. I guess we could start with who signed elsewhere first and then work our way around the spectrum. But Milton Williams got a massive deal with the Patriots. He's now the highest paid Patriot ever. Isaiah Rodgers to the Vikings. Josh Sweat to the Cardinals. Oren Burks to the Bengals. Kenny Gainwell to the Steelers. And Darius Slay also to the Steelers. My biggest things here, Milton Williams got a ton of money. No way the Eagles were paying him. I would have liked to keep one of the two of Rodgers or Slay. Eagles lose both of them. Josh Sweat, not surprised with. Oren Burks probably left to get some more playing time with the Bengals. And Kenny Gainwell kind of seems out of nowhere, but the Eagles brought in another running back, which we'll talk about a little bit. What were your thoughts with the Eagles losing a lot of guys on defense? This defense is going to look very different next year.
Yeah, the Super Bowl tax gets hit pretty much every offseason from any team that wins the Super Bowl, even goes to the Super Bowl. You lose a lot of great players that end up playing well in those games. And that happened for the Eagles this right around. Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, they were two of the best players in the Super Bowl this past year. Sweat especially, I think he was probably number 2 behind Jalen Hurts. So losing both of them is a really unfortunate thing. You kind of alluded to it. Milton Williams getting $26 million a year. Congratulations, brother. You go enjoy that money. He basically said in his press conference that this was the biggest day of his entire life signing that contract and people were giving him crap for that. But him saying that, it's okay. It's money. Money talks in the league. It talks in the world. He wants to get paid like a millionaire. He is one now. People were giving him crap because he didn't want to win. Guys, he's a third-round pick out of, I think it's Memphis. I forget what school he was from. He was almost never really thought he was going to make that much money. And the fact that someone handed him $104 million, that's insane amount of money. Brother, go take that money, enjoy it, enjoy your life. Congrats for him. Same with Sweat. That's a ton of money for him too. I would have really liked to bring back Sweat, given his price that he got with the Cardinals. I think the Eagles could have matched that or been somewhere around that to where Sweat maybe would want to come back. But overall, I'm okay with losing both of them. It sucks. It stings. But big thing that I've really noticed through the Eagles free agency moves and no moves and guys they've lost like Slay and Isaiah Rodgers as well, they're kind of turning a new stone, and they're kind of in that spot where they want to see young talent play. And it's honestly a really good thing because I would be way more nervous about the Eagles next season if I didn't know how much young talent they really have. Every single person that they've lost in free agency so far, they pretty much have a source of young talent already on the team that's been on there for at least one season. You got guys like Moro Ojomo, who's going to replace pretty much Milton Williams' time at defensive tackle. Jalix Hunt, second-year guy that they just drafted last year in the third round, who was excellent in the Super Bowl as well, and in the playoffs as well, who's going to take more snaps now at end and at edge rusher and replace Josh Sweat, essentially. Guys like Jeremiah Trotter, that's going to replace Oren Burks now full-time at linebacker. Keely Ringo's another one that's going to pretty much get time at corner. So you pretty much see also having the other two corners, Coop and Mitchell. They're the young guys that are going to now take the step to being the 1 and 2 on the defense. So you pretty much see the blueprint where everything's going to go from what they have currently in their young guys and what they lost in free agency. You kind of see that they have guys that are going to replace them. So if they didn't have that, I would be a little bit more nervous. But from what they lost, it sucks to lose those guys. They're great players, and having depth is awesome with those guys. But at the end of the day, you can't buy everybody. You have to let guys walk. They're going to get refurbished for some of these guys, but I feel like they're in a good spot right now to where they transition this offseason.
Yeah, we'll talk about a little bit more of the strategy of this offseason a little bit later. The Eagles signed running back A.J. Dillon, outside linebacker Josh. I've been struggling with this last name. Is it Yuchi?
I believe it's Yuchi. Like
Yuchi, okay. Josh Yuchi. Tight end Harrison Bryant. Cornerback Andori Jackson. Long snapper Charlie Hewlett. Punt returner / kick returner Avery Williams. Outside linebacker Patrick Johnson. Tight end Kylan Granson. So the big one here, my two, is Yuchi and A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon, the Eagles are building a quad squad in their running back room. He said he squatted like 600 plus pounds in high school. Wow, that's kind of impressive.
As someone who used to be able to do 500 in high school, yeah, and this is as a big old offensive lineman, not a running back who usually it's the skinny little running back for high school teams. Now, 600 is ridiculous in high school. I could never even sniff that. But anyway, just throwing that out there. But no, the Eagles signings that they've made so far, it's kind of the Howie-esque moves because, and this is the thing that people forget. People are like, why are the Eagles not being big spenders? Well, they already were big spenders before the free agency period opened with Zach Bond. That was the big contract that the Eagles gave out. And that's going to take up majority of their available cap this offseason, which is okay. But with the signings they've made, I think they've upgraded in certain spots and have given good depth to their positions overall. A.J. Dillon, I really think with the money that they've given him, he is going to not take over Saquon's rushes, but Saquon pretty much throughout the entirety of the season, he was rushing the majority of the game. He was rushing in the high parts of the 20 rushes per game, getting up to 30 at the end of the season. Kenny Gainwell, as much as I love the guy, he wasn't really sniffing that many rush attempts throughout the season. With A.J. Dillon, I really think he's someone who really wants to prove it, and he could give Barkley a little bit of time off his feet. Obviously, Saquon's still going to be the go-to guy throughout the entire season. They also now have the two beefiest guys to push Saquon or push Hurts into the end zone on tush pushes. I think that's a really big benefit with that as well. I think Dillon is going to be someone who could really help with that. But Dillon's a really good signing for the Eagles. I think it's a really good prove-it deal. Someone that they could end up getting another comp pick next offseason if he ends up getting a big contract next year. Uchi is another one. He gives really good depth, and he's young. He's someone who's trying to prove it. He just got benched by Kansas City last year after having an 11.5 sack season in New England a couple years ago. He's definitely someone who, in the right system, can, get things going and maybe be a high sack kind of guy, like get into the 6, 7, 8s, which is something you would really need because now you're losing a lot of guys like Sweat, Milton Williams, who were big sack guys for you last year. Overall, there are other guys. I think Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson, 2 tight ends that are coming in now. Really interesting, the tight end room that they have building up right now. Charlie Hewlett, new long snapper. Sucks Rick Lovato, but hey, enjoy your 2 rings, buddy. Thank you for your service. And Adoree Jackson's another guy too. Another young guy who is going to add depth to their cornerback room with now him, Keely Ringo. I could see them grabbing somebody in the later rounds, probably like, I don't know, about a third, maybe the 4th or the 5th round, grabbing corners that could help depth up that cornerback room. Because you got guys like Eli Ricks that could also help out, that you've been saving kind of these last couple of years on your team. But overall, Howie is doing what he usually does best. And you saw it last year with guys like Mekhi Becton. He is getting guys who are going to be on prove-it deals, who are young, who honestly, at this point, you still want them to be better. And by signing these guys, you can be able to cash in on their value of guys who pretty much have been given up on. A lot of these guys are quote unquote draft busts or just guys who just haven't turned into stars. And if the Eagles can get the most out of them, you could turn them into big profit deals and end up being more and more comp picks that you can end up getting for your team. So there's a plus side of that. Plus, you can end up just getting value guys at very short contract. Uchi is only getting like $2 million this year. AJ Dillon's only getting a couple million. Adoree Jackson's getting a minimum deal. If you guys can turn these guys into your scheme and turn them into high-profile players, that is how you keep winning championships. You find the guys that nobody else can get to work. So overall, they haven't really hit the splash other than Bond, and they really haven't hit a splash on any outside free agents. But I still think that the Eagles are doing a really good job in this free agency pool and salvaging the players that they have on their team right now. Because let's not forget it, we have a lot of big contract guys not only on the team, but that are also coming up.
Yeah, we'll get to that more in depth in a little bit. Trades that the Eagles made. They traded away the biggest move so far. CJ Gardner-Johnson to the Texans, along with a 6th-round pick in 2026, and then also Kenny Pickett to the Cleveland Browns. In return, they got Kenyon Green, an offensive, kind of a washed offensive lineman. You kind of saw something similar with Mekhi Becton coming in with the Eagles last year. 5th-round pick in 2026. Quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 5th-round pick in 2025 as well. That is what they acquired from those trades. I want to talk about the CJ Gardner-Johnson one. Kind of was out of nowhere. They lose both Darius Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson. They said it was for financial reasons only. Gardner-Johnson kind of back-ended his deal, 3-year deal that he signed last year. Could there be something else in the locker room that we didn't really know about, something behind the scenes that could have caused this trade? We know what goes on with CJ Gardner-Johnson. Could there be something else? Because to me, this doesn't feel like something that just kind of happens for financial reasons.
Only being financial reasons, I hardly doubt that. I think financial reasons are definitely involved. And I think you definitely look at his later end of the year as a contract and you're like, oh man, we love CJ, but man, I feel like we could get a safety that's cheaper than what he's making and honestly brings about the same exact thing. Maybe not toughness or anything like that. But now I would say the CJ deal, I do think a little bit had to do with some of the locker room chemistry stuff that was going on. I really don't think that was a great look for him and Slay when they were beefing on the internet a couple weeks ago. But I do think the financials had a little bit something to do with this. And I honestly think that, that they were getting a little bit of depth when they were getting Kenyon Green. I know Green isn't the best rated PFF guy in the world, and everybody thinks he's not that great. I trust Jeff Stoutland to understand what he's doing and to bringing in guys that he knows he can work with and make better. Kenyon Green is also 23, he's pretty much almost the same age as me. And they're asking him to be in Houston 3 years in a row to be their number one offensive lineman. It's a tough role to have. So at the same time saying that, I do think that this CJ deal is going to sting a little bit, especially because if we're going to struggle in the defensive secondary, I do think Reed Blankenship can take over and be the leader of this defense. I think the toughness has to come a little bit now from him and Coop and Quinyon Mitchell. And I definitely think that they can elevate that. But losing the talker like CJ, it's a tough thing to lose. It's something that you don't realize how important it is until you're getting picked apart on the defensive side and you need someone to get in somebody's face. So it's an unfortunate thing to lose that. I still think it can work out for them. I like getting that pick back for that trade. I think Kenyon Green can be a really big depth guy. I still think Tyler Steen is going to be the starter next year at guard, but I think Green can be somebody that can be a really good depth piece for them. And then the Kenny Pickett trade, I thought that was really good for the Eagles. I thought getting a 5th round pick for Pickett, a guy who honestly you can give or take a backup quarterback. I think honestly Tanner McKee's a little bit better, and you kind of want to see what you get with him. And now McKee is going to be the backup quarterback now. So you pretty much just put a better guy into your backup quarterback role. You get a 5th round pick for your former backup, and you get DTR, who knows? He's had some NFL playing time, and he hasn't looked great, but who knows what the Eagles can do? Maybe they can turn him into someone who turns up against the Giants at the end of the season and ends up getting traded next year for a 4th or 5th round pick again. And then you just keep cycling backups. But overall, the trades haven't been that bad. I think the CJ one is going to sting a little bit, but the Eagles draft in a couple of months, a safety could be available near the end of the 1st round. And that could be a position that while they don't normally draft secondary, they did last year, obviously in their first 2 picks with Coop and Quinyon Mitchell. It could be a position that they look for to lock up that secondary, because if they were to draft one of these top-end safeties, you get their new safety from the draft, Reed, Coop, and Quinyon Mitchell. That's a pretty scary 2 high safeties and 2 starting corners for them. So an overall pretty decent shot that could happen, but I definitely think, and also for free agency, I think someone like Justin Simmons could be someone you could bring in, a guy that you has talked openly about wanting to join the Eagles, who's someone, I don't know what his price is definitely going to be, but someone the Eagles probably can afford. And that's someone who, in my opinion, for the last 4 years has been someone who's been rumored to be traded to the Eagles. So he could fulfill that destiny and maybe come to the Eagles. That could be another guy that he could sign for depth. But yeah, overall, the Eagles are in a sustainable spot after their trades. They definitely can make do with what they have, but it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks until the draft to see where they address certain positions.
Yeah, they got an open spot. Also, I missed Mekhi Becton signed late last night with the Los Angeles Chargers, which it came out 2-year, $20 million deal. And, it's cool, living out in LA, but I feel like Becton kind of underpaid a little bit with that deal.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, $10 million a year. I feel like the Eagles could have definitely cashed in on that and maybe brought him back. I maybe think that they didn't think he was going to get that cheap of a deal, but anyway, we're going to get in a pick for him, probably a $10 million, probably only a 6th rounder, maybe a 5th. I got to see where those comp picks are, but most likely right now you're going to get 4 comp picks next year for Rodgers, Becton, Sweat, and Williams. Probably at least 1 4th, 1 5th, maybe 2 5ths, and a 7th for Rodgers, something around that. But you're going to get some decent amount of picks for these guys that are going to next year turn into even more draft picks that the Eagles have acquired.
Other moves the Eagles made, of course, we talked about it. They re-signed Zach Bond to a major deal, which was kind of the move that needed to happen. And they also, Ben Van Sumeren, I always struggle with that name. He was re-signed, and Saquon Barkley got that massive extension. I think that was last week, so we're a little behind on that. But Saquon Barkley got that major extension as well, which signs him through a couple more years, at back end some more money as well. So that's always a good thing when you're able to extend your franchise running back. And then if he's not playing that well by then, he got all this dead money, Howie does what he does best and trade him for something. But we'll see what happens at that point. So now the Eagles got some holes to fill. They got a hole at right guard. They got a couple holes in the secondary. Got a hole in the line. We kind of talked about it a little bit. Edge rusher as well. Where do you see the Eagles doing with that? You see some Tyler Steen, Keely Ringo, some other guys that you see currently in-house that the Eagles could do, or will the Eagles go shopping a little bit to fill these holes?
I really don't know if they really need to do more shopping. The big ticket guy that has been rumored right now is Trey Hendrickson. I don't really know if he's going to get into that, if that price will really drop. But right now, I truly think that they want to pay young guys. And I would say this year, upcoming, it's going to be a big year for Jalix Hunt, Moro Jomo, Jeremiah Trotter, Keely Ringo, and Sidney Brown. Those 5 guys are all going to be put into starter-esque roles. I even forgot about Sidney Brown, talking about him earlier with the secondary. He's someone who the Eagles have really wanted to turn around and become a really good starter for them. They have 5 guys right there who they're expecting to take big leaps. And I expect a lot of that of them too. They have another year, all those guys under Vic Fangio's defensive scheme now. They really weren't asked to do a lot this past season, but now they need to become the guys that just keep filling in and funneling this Eagles core right now. So overall, I would say that those 5 guys are in for the biggest due. I really don't think much more shopping can be done, especially after the Bond deal. He was someone you really had to take care of because you really didn't have a replacement for Bond. Barkley, you pretty much paid Barkley because of the MVP season he just put up, but it's still a great deal for him. Overall, they have holes, but every team has holes. And the Eagles also have their own first, second, third, and fourth upcoming pick in this draft, and then 4 fifth-round picks as well. So you have 8 picks to make and play with what you want to do. If certain guys fall in certain orders, I've been saying for a long time, I think tight end could be a position that the Eagles could target now for a while. And if there's someone like a Tyler Warren that falls into the late 20s, or if there's an edge rusher like a Shamar Stewart who falls into the late 20s, and the Eagles want to jump and trade a couple of their fifth that they have and move up from 32, that could be something they could do. If their guys fall out, they could trade back, acquire even more picks, and have more picks for the next couple of years, because the Eagles have done one good thing in the last couple of years. They have drafted well, and it's put them in the position to go to 2 Super Bowls and win one of them. If they want to keep going to these Super Bowls, they're going to have to keep not only accumulating draft picks, but hitting on a lot of those picks and finding guys that can plug and play with the current stars that they have on their team. Because right now, I would say they have, I want to say 5 or 6 of, I would say 6 of the top 50 players in the league right now, and not many teams can say that. You got Lane, you got Mailata, you got Saquon, you got A.J. Brown, you got Jalen Carter, and you got Jalen Hurts. You got 6 guys right there who are stars in this league, and some other guys who are very good supporting stars. So you have top guys on this team that you just need to figure out what kind of small contract guys can fill and plug in around them with the draft picks that the Eagles have the next couple of years.
Yeah, the comp picks that you're talking about, Adam Schefter just came out. The Eagles are poised to have 2026 compensatory picks in rounds 3, 4, 5, and 6. They also already had the Jets 3 in 2026, courtesy of the Hassan Reddick trade. They now are expected to have 5 of the top 100 picks and 12 overall picks in the 2026 NFL draft. And you look at this offseason, right? They are kind of getting rid of all of these old expiring contracts and older aging players. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Darius Slay, some other Josh Sweat, some other guys that the Eagles have some guys in-house that can fill in. And if you look at it, the Eagles now have 21 draft picks over the next 2 years, 11 of them in the first 4 rounds. Is there any strategy in this offseason? Get these older guys out, clear the way for some big deals to be made with their younger guys? That has to be something that is going through Howie Roseman's head right now in this offseason.
100%. I feel like Eagles fans who freak out about losing these guys, the players this offseason, don't realize how much money Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, and Cooper DeJean are going to cost. Jalen Carter especially. Jalen Carter's number, we just saw what happened this past week with the new deals that are getting made with the Max Crosbys and the Myles Garretts, the soon-to-be Jamar Chases that is going to get another bigger deal as the highest paid non-quarterback. Jalen Carter's number at minimum is going to start with 3, and the second number at minimum is going to be a 5. $35 million per year at minimum. And that's if he takes a little bit of a discount to make things work here in Philadelphia. Realistically, I could see Jalen Carter flat out asking for $40 million a year, or 40.1 and being a little bit higher than Myles Garrett, who is the highest paid edge rusher right now. But on top of that, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, both need new deals as the highest paid edge rusher because, they want to be the highest paid guys. Jalen Carter is going to ask for so much money that you need to pay him as much as possible and make sure that you get that deal done. Obviously, you don't want to break the bank with him and pay him $50 million or whatever, but he's going to cost a lot of money. And it's something you have to think about moving forward with the other stars that you're also paying. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, I know it's 2 years away. Those guys are going to get big contracts when they're extension eligible. They're going to be out right now. JC Horn just got the highest cornerback contract at 4 for $100. They're going to be probably exceeding that, both of them, at least Quinyon especially. Quinyon is going to get a very big contract. So you have those 3 guys in the next couple of years that you have to think about paying. On top of that, you have your offensive line who's all getting paid 8 figures. You have your 2 wide receivers who are getting paid 8 figures. You have your quarterback who's getting paid 9 figures. who most likely is going to get another contract in the next couple of years because the quarterback market continues to soar and soar. Josh Allen just got another huge contract. Jalen Hurts is going to get probably another deal after winning Super Bowl MVP for the Eagles this year. So you have a lot of money decisions you have to think about not only this year, but into the future. And I think that Howie is trying to do that while also getting the most out of what he has. And by getting these comp picks, getting 12 draft picks in next year's draft can help you retool this team for years and years to come. And you're hoping that by the time Jalen Hurts is 6, 7, 8 years from now, still getting nearing probably the end of his career as a quarterback, as the Eagles quarterback, you can sustain this team and just keep rolling and rolling talent and hopefully trying to win a couple Super Bowls over the next decade. It's a crazy thing to think about as a GM to think so far in the future, but Howie Roseman, in my opinion, does this the best. He realizes that right now he has to make moves that will help him further down the line. And I honestly think that if the way he's handling things right now by letting free agents walk and acquiring draft picks right now, that's the thing that he's trying to do. He's trying to get as much talent as he can on this roster as cheaply as he can for the next couple of years, as they want to still be in that championship window for not only this upcoming season, but the following season and the following season after that.
You can call the Eagles cheap. You can call them whatever you want to call them, but the strategy right now is to be cheap and then give these guys, keep them Eagles for life in the future when their rookie deals are up. You bring in guys like Kenyon Green, who's on a rookie deal. Lose Mekhi Becton, who was a free agent and going to obviously be more expensive than a rookie deal. And you just do those kinds of things. You stay cheap, you stay young, and you can be good for what feels like could be forever. As long as Howie Roseman is here, the Eagles are going to be good. And this is why Howie Roseman is the best general manager in the history of the NFL, and he's becoming one of the best sports minds in sports history.
100%. You know, it depends on drafting. A lot of this depends on hitting on draft picks, but the Eagles have proved time and time again they know what they're doing in their scouting department, especially these last couple of years. Ever since that Jalen Reagor pick, it's kind of seemed like after that pick, he's kind of hit on a lot of draft picks recently. And I honestly think the scouting department, they know what they're doing, and they know how to get young talent that fits the scheme that they have. So as long as they keep drafting well and keep acquiring picks and finding cheap guys that could turn into stars, the Eagles are going to be just fine.
All right, we got some breaking news.
It's good to know.
Coming out of not the Eagles, not a professional team, but college basketball. And it involves the Villanova Wildcats, who have fired Kyle Neptune after 3 years with the team and no success. Matt, you seem very happy.
I really am, man. Oh my goodness. So a little bit about me and my family. My dad is a huge Jay Wright fan. Huge. This guy loves the way Jay Wright coaches, and that's why he fell in love with Villanova. I'm a Penn State guy. That's the college I went to. My dad didn't go to school. He was really just always loved watching Villanova basketball. He thought Jay Wright was just the best coach possible. He got the most out of his players, played the game of basketball right, and he loved what Jay Wright built at Villanova. I remember watching the 2016 and the 2018 teams. I still think to this day, the 2018 Villanova team is the best college basketball team I've ever seen in my life. That team was unbelievable. The way they shot threes and shot free throws and won games like DiVincenzo, Brunson, Mikal Bridges. There was so many guys on those teams, even like Josh Hart's the year before. Kyle Neptune has single-handedly destroyed the way Villanova plays basketball. And I've never seen a coach not being able to close out more games in my entire life. My goodness. It would be watching Villanova games this year was so frustrating for the sheer fact that once they got a big enough lead, they felt like the game was over. They'd be up like 72-50 late with like 7 minutes left, and they would take the entire shot clock to get a shot off. They'd miss. The other team would go down, score instantly, and they just keep doing it back and forth until the game got to a 4-point game with 45 seconds left. The other team would have 3, make it a 1-point game, and then Villanova would end up losing the game. Every game, it felt like that. It felt like that the other night. The other night when they were playing UConn in the Big East semifinals, or the Big East quarterfinals, excuse me, and all they had to do was stay with UConn in that game, and they would end up going to the semifinals against Creighton. with 8 minutes left, it was about 50-48. Villanova was leading, and they ended up losing by almost 20 points. It was UConn, and yet I understand UConn is pretty damn good. They're the 2-time defending champs right now, and Dan Hurley's probably one of the best coaches in college basketball. But Kyle Neptune just honestly felt like the team lost it, and it was on Neptune who just couldn't get anything going with the team. This is a great move for Villanova. I honestly think they need to hire outside of the Villanova gene and find somebody who can rebuild this program to what Jay Wright brought it greatness before, because obviously hiring an apprentice from the Jay Wright's team just didn't work out. Kyle Neptune just did not belong in this Villanova team. They need to hire a new coach. I would love Will Wade out of McNeese State. I think that'd be a really good coach for Villanova. It sounds like he's going to North Carolina State, but Villanova is a top-end university. 2 national championships in the last 10 years. This is a team that needs to be up there with the Dukes and the UNCs, the true blue bloods in college basketball. Villanova needs to be in there. So the fact that it took them this long to realize that Kyle Neptune just did not need to be the head coach of the team is really frustrating. But after 3 years, it's over. I really hope that they can find a coach that can rebuild Villanova into the marquee program that they really are in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of started in the 80s, back in the day, where they won that national championship. They were great ever since. Jay Wright, of course, one of the best coaches of all time. Where does Villanova go? Like, you don't have a lot of talent right now because no one really wants to play for Kyle Neptune. You got the transfer portal thing as well. Like, where does Villanova go? Is there any names out there that they could maybe hire? Not a huge college basketball follower. Of course, I watch March Madness, but not really totally in tune. Do you know any names out there?
So I mentioned Will Wade. He's the McNeese State coach. He's been a mid-major coach that's been really good for McNeese State these past couple of years, taking them to 2 back-to-back tournaments. I think he's going to go to North Carolina State. Another one that I honestly think could be really good for Villanova, I don't know if he's really going to want to do this now, is Fran McCaffrey. He just got let go at the University of Iowa. Longtime coach there, was there for 15 years. He's someone who really became a longtime guy at that university. So I don't know if he really want to do that as another school. Another guy I think could be really good, Darian DeVries at West Virginia. He's only in the first year of his new deal at West Virginia. His son Tucker is a really good player. They've been together ever since the last couple of years. We're at St. Louis last year. Now they're in West Virginia, the big time power program. He's been doing really good. West Virginia is in the tournament for the first time in I think a couple of years now. They're back in the NCAA tournament. That could be someone that I think outside could bring a kind of longevity to Villanova. And it seems like that's the big job that I feel like a guy like him would really want. I really like Darian DeVries. Another guy, Ben McCollum. He is the head coach at the University of Drake in the Missouri Valley Conference. That's kind of asking for a mid-major to step up and be a big-time Big East coach. It's a really hard job to do. The Big East is a tough conference to play in, man. That is physical basketball. It is really hard to be a good coach in the Big East and have a really good team in the Big East. And that's why it was so impressive year after year what Jay Wright was able to do at Villanova. Those guys kind of seem like the leading guys right now that around the college basketball world are going to get new jobs this offseason. And Villanova may not have been good these last 3 years. They are a marquee job. People want Villanova as the head coach job. It's a great alumni support. It's a great program to build college basketball and build your own thing at this point, because if they hire outside of the Villanova bubble and get someone who could be the next Jay Wright and bring greatness to the school and build something big, I really think that they're going to do it with a mid-major school or someone who hasn't really been given that chance yet. So Darian DeVries is a big one. I think Ben McCollum is another one too for Drake. Those two guys seem like they could be really big. And then Will Wade as well from McNeese State, but it seems like he's going to North Carolina State. But if not, I think Villanova should definitely be interested in all those guys right now.
Yeah, Villanova, biggest coaching job available right now in American sports. So we'll see what goes on with that. We'll probably talk about that if a hire is made sometime in the future. But we got to talk about, SeatGeek. I mean, they're the best, no doubt about it. Now, Villanova's a big job. SeatGeek is a big way to save some money. If you use code Phillies Sports Report at checkout, you save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Again, Phillies Sports Report, $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Thank you to FOCO for sponsoring the click the link in the description or the bio to save at SeatGeek. All right, let's keep chugging along. We're going back to the Eagles as the free agency isn't over yet. there's still things to be done, and it seems like there's some trades that could be being made with the Eagles. You know, they just won a Super Bowl, but they're not scared to move some things around. It came out per Jordan Schultz. The Eagles have been open to trade talks involving tight end Dallas Goedert and defensive end Bryce Huff. Goedert is in the final year of his deal. Had some trouble staying on the field, as he always has in his career. Also, Bryce Huff, he was one, of course, $53 million man, 3-year deal last year. Didn't see a lot of playing time down the stretch with the Eagles. Had off to a horrible start. Do you see any of these deals happening? Maybe one with Cincinnati for a certain guy, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But do you see Dallas Goedert and Bryce Huff being moved?
You know, Dallas Goedert is a really interesting case with the Eagles. I honestly think that Dallas Goedert, he will at most either have one more year in Philly or he's getting traded. I think those are the only two options right now for Dallas Goedert. I think right now he seems like a guy who is not going to get another contract with the Eagles. It seems like they're either going to cut their losses. They have two options, pretty much, Eagles. The Eagles could keep Dallas Goedert for this upcoming season. They get another year out of Goddard. Hopefully he plays a lot of the games, so he doesn't miss a lot because he is injury prone. And that's been a big issue with Goddard for the reason why they don't want to give him another contract. But he's not really getting up there in age, but I just don't think they really want to waste their time with 13 or 12 games that Goddard plays. And they could just have him for one more season, try to win another Super Bowl with him as the tight end, and then let him walk in free agency and most likely get another comp pick for him. And at that point, you just cut your losses, get the pick that you can. He'll probably sign around, depending on how great of a season he has, 10-ish to the mid-teens, somewhere around that. So you're going to look at a 5th or a 6th round pick for him, which is still a good value. So if any team is willing to call up and give you a trade for Dallas Goedert for a 3rd or a 4th round pick, you might have to entertain those conversations. And it's a tough thing to put yourself in because if you were to trade Dallas Goedert, you put yourself in a tough spot because you have Grant Calcaterra as your top tight end at this point. It's interesting, the tight end signings they've made, Harrison Bryant, Kylan Granson, they now have 4 tight ends in their tight end room right now. Could they be moving on from one of those guys in the beginning of the year? Maybe. Could they be moving on from Dallas Goedert? It seems like that could be the case. Now, the interesting thing with Grant Calcaterra, he only has 1 year left on his deal. They could pick up his 5th year option and give him a 5th year option after that. He's also contract extension eligible this offseason too. Dallas Goedert, to me, I think I would, if you can get a 3rd rounder for him, I think you 100% have to do that trade. It's tough losing a guy like that, but again, younger guys is what you need to do. And if you were to trade Goddard for a 3rd round pick in this upcoming draft or even next year's draft, you could spend a high draft pick this year. It's probably going to be a pick this year. You can get a 3rd rounder for Goddard. You can 100% turn that into one of these tight ends in the draft. Or you could spend a higher pick on a tight end if one of them falls. Guys like Harold Fannin is going to be someone in the late 2nd, early 3rd round that you could end up drafting if you get a 3rd rounder for him. Or you could use a 2nd rounder on him. If guys like Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland from Penn State and Michigan, if those guys fall in like the mid-20s, you could see the Eagles jump in and maybe go after a tight end like that if they get rid of Goddard. This Goddard issue, though, if he doesn't want to sign a contract that the Eagles don't like, which I don't think they're going to give him one, but if they could offer one and see what he thinks, if he would want to sign something like that, but most likely not, he could be a draft like week trading where you're not going to trade him until around that draft time. He could be one of the players to definitely watch. For Bryce Huff, I really think at this point they're just trying to cut their losses because I think they don't like what they see in Huff. That could change, but I also think he could be a key piece in a trade for a guy like Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson is the marquee player on this trade market, and Bryce Huff could be something that could be traded in that trade, but I'm not sure if they really want to get rid of Bryce Huff or if they're just trying to do this to see what kind of value he has. But those two guys could 100% be on the move, but I really don't know what their prices are right now. Goddard's been rumored at like a 4th. I don't know if I would do that. I would have to think about it, but yeah, you definitely could get some value for guys that like Bryce Huff and Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, well, talking about an asking price, Trey Hendrickson, his is apparently ridiculous, and it's been a big turnoff for teams. Hey, teams are willing to give him a contract if they trade for him, but the Bengals asking price is pricey. Could the Eagles do anything with Trey Hendrickson?
Yeah, man, if they get Trey Hendrickson, they will have one of the best 1-2 punches in him and Jalen Carter for the front D line. I think the Eagles could handle his contract if they were to give him one. But the issue is just trading so many picks. Like, they would have to probably give up a second and a third for Hendrickson, which is a lot. That's a lot. DK Metcalf just only got traded for a second and like a seventh. But man, their Bengals asking price is a lot, and they're just not going to give away Hendrickson for free. They still really like him. But in my opinion, I don't think Trey Hendrickson could work out with this team. Well, it would be awesome, but the money that they're trying to save and trying to build for the future, I just think adding two $30+ million defensive linemen is just not going to be sustainable for this team. That the Eagles have really never been about that. You know, they've given guys like Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox the big money contracts, but they really have never given that much money for two guys before. Like, they give Graham and Fletch a lot, but not as much as what Jalen Carter and Trey Hendrickson are going to get in their next contracts. Also with that, I do think that they could get away with trading for Hendrickson if they could add young players in. A guy like Jordan Davis, in my opinion, is someone who probably will become expendable in that scenario. I think you could trade him to Cincinnati, maybe only have to give up like a third rounder or maybe a second rounder. I don't know what the equal to that is, but I could see them replacing Hendrickson and trading for him by getting rid of guys like Bryce Huff or Jordan Davis. Right now, the Eagles' biggest thing, though, even though it is trades and obviously seeing what they can get for those guys, is getting some of the contracts done for the extension-eligible guys. Cam Jurgens is the number one big one. Cam Jurgens needs a new contract, and you're going to give it to him because he is the replacement center for Jason Kelce. He has shown that he can be the center in the city, and you really want to keep your core offensive line in the Lanes, the Mailatas, the Dickersons, and the Cam Jurgens together. Those four guys could build you a great offensive line, and you can really rotate in that other guard year after year until you either draft somebody that can be a stud, like maybe Tyler Steen, or you find somebody in free agency. And most likely you're going to have to think about replacing Lane one day, but we'll talk about that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
But
I don't even want to, my mind can't even think about that right now.
I don't either. But yeah. But right now, I do think that guys like that, Jordan Davis could get another contract extension. I don't know if the Eagles are going to offer that to him too, so he could become expendable. Nakobe Dean's another contract eligible guy. I do think even though with the injury, they're going to give him a contract, I think honestly the injury might help them in the sense that they could get a little bit cheaper on that deal because I don't know if everybody is really going to take a chance on a two major injury Nakobe Dean. I like Nakobe Dean. I think he's a really good player, but it's going to be really tough for teams to give him big contracts with the two injuries he's had in the NFL and the injury he had in college as well. So that's the one you got to look at. Grant Calcaterra is a contract eligible, extension eligible. So you got to see what his market looks like. So a lot of guys who are going into their final year on their rookie deals where it's make or break time for some of these guys in contracts, and then other guys like Huff and Goddard who could be out of the move the next couple months. So from now until I would say the end of April when the draft begins, that's the time when you're going to get some interesting out of nowhere moves like contract extensions and some trades that could really show you where the Eagles are going to move in upcoming April's draft for where they pick 32 and beyond, the other picks as well.
All right, let's shift gears now away from the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm done talking about the Sixers team. They stink. But Daryl Morey was on a podcast this week. I think it was like DraftKings Network. I've never heard of this podcast before, no offense. But this is what he said when he was asked if the Sixers use AI, not Allen Iverson, like ChatGPT, when they're making team decisions.
When you're making a decision, and insert your favorite Sixers decision here, are you asking an LLM for their input?
So we two answers there. We absolutely use models as a vote in any decision, and how much of that decision depends on, how much the assumptions behind those models don't change, and their past success rate. So if you have a highly successful model for picking draft picks, and we think that the game, Evan hasn't changed the rules yet, and so the game isn't changed.
Evan Wash, who's in charge of the league office,
thank you,
of defeating you.
Yes, then the models get a lot of weight in those decisions. It turns out LLMs do fairly well at prediction. They still are not beating human, like super forecasters they're called, like in Human Judgment Project talks about it. But they do add signal over just scouts and things like that. So we'll treat them almost like one scout. Now over time, if it's shown that they have a better track record than scouts, we might weight the LLMs or use multiple LLMs as one or two votes out of the process. So it turns out I'm building on a lot of things that Sentil knows, and you know that multi-model approaches can put you more on the decision frontier, the optimal decision frontier. And when I say that carefully, you get very similar accuracy with lower risk by using multi-model approaches. And so that's why we do that.
I would just like NBA Central to aggregate what Daryl just said, which is that he asks ChatGPT for help on trades.
Yeah, please not aggregate. No.
I'm just trying to, pay for my kids' tuition, Daryl.
Yeah, all right. We're asking NBA Central to aggregate it. Well, I'm going to aggregate it right now. This is a problem. This is like me in high school writing my essays with ChatGPT.
Dude. So here's the thing with this. I actually have no problem with them using like AI in the front office, because there is software that is like very good at like predicting outsources for like contracts and like seeing projections for year after year. Every company uses them to project things for their future. So I don't have no problem with them doing that. But using AI to flat out ask for trades and ask, is this a good move, is honestly very embarrassing. You are an NBA general manager or like for front office president, whatever you want, whatever his role is. I don't even care to call him the right thing. Your job is to have the gut feeling and to know when to do certain things for trades. And you're asking a computer software to be your NBA GM. Like people say all the time, I don't see the AI taking jobs away from it. It's literally taking jobs right away right now. It's taking the job of an NBA GM that an AI computer could essentially run a basketball team. And probably with some of these idiots that do it, could probably be better anyway. But that's not the point. You're making decisions like that using AI and ChatGPT to ask, should we as the Sixers sign so-and-so to a contract? And he's like, yes, you should. He is a great player. He was an all-star in 2016. I just think it's honestly makes us look even worse than we are right now. But man, the Sixers right now are in a really tough spot. Has a product standpoint, like they're just not great. The whole Embiid situation just isn't looking good. The only light in the fire is if somehow they get a top pick in this upcoming draft. But honestly, I doubt that's going to happen. The NBA just doesn't want the process to work for cheating the system for all them years, and it's still not going to work to this day, probably. So who knows what's going to happen, but this is just flat out embarrassing to see from our general manager is using AI to run a basketball team, essentially.
Well, if the Sixers are going to use AI, so am I. Here's ChatGPT.
Oh, boy.
And let's see. The Sixers signed Joel Embiid to a massive contract extension this offseason. So, should the 76ers extend Paul George past his 5th year of his contract? And it gives you, his performance and health, the team needs, age and fit, championship window. Conclusion, if Paul George is still playing at a high level and the 76ers believe he can contribute significantly during their championship window, extending him could be beneficial. However, the decision should also consider his injury history, the financial flexibility of the team, and whether they feel he still fits in the long-term vision of the franchise. If his performance or health is declining, the 76ers might decide it's better to explore other options in free agency or through trades.
To be fair, I don't need AI to tell me that every single thing in that conclusion right there. I know it from watching Paul George, that every single thing in there about his injury, how he used to be a great player. But something like this just seems so ridiculous that they actually, this seems like the answer for what they're trying to do right now, man. It's honestly embarrassing as a team.
Who should the 76ers draft for the top 6 pick in 2025? Let's see. So they need a wing player score.
I actually agree with that.
secondary playmaker. And so we got Cooper Flagg, Trey Johnson,
Trey Johnson's another one.
Cameron Boozer,
That's not how you spell Trey, and he doesn't go to LSU, but that's okay. Cameron Boozer's not in this draft, but that's okay.
RJ Jones,
I don't know RJ Jones,
Matas Buzelis.
who's already on the Bulls. Good to know. Okay.
Here's your conclusion. If the 76ers land a top 6 pick, they should focus on a versatile player who can contribute both offensively and defensively, with a particular emphasis on perimeter defense, shooting, and playmaking. Cooper Flagg, probably the first overall pick, even though he's injured right now.
Yep.
Trey Johnson, who that's not how you spell it. Cameron Boozer, who doesn't exist, would all be excellent fits for the 76ers depending on their specific needs. The 76ers need a player who can help them in the short term and also grow into a key contributor in the long run as the championship window continues to open. Or it's really continuing to close, but
Yeah. I again, I don't, and half these people are either in the league already or not in this upcoming draft.
why does Daryl Morey trust you?
That's a great question.
I think Daryl Morey would be more likely to trust data, analysis, and insights rather than me personally. That is not true.
No,
That is, yeah.
I do provide reasoning and strategic. Oh my goodness, that's just. But yeah, that's our GM right now, using AI to help build a basketball team. So good for him, man. Let's see how it goes next year. I really think right now the Sixers are in a spot where they might have to make a major move, whether it's firing Daryl Morey or firing Nick Nurse, which at this point, as much as bad as Nick Nurse's team has been, I really don't think it's fully his fault, but they're just in a really rough spot right now, the Sixers. And I don't know what this team is going to do to turn back into the team that they were a couple years ago when they were almost going to the conference finals, almost going to the NBA finals. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Sixers.
Yeah, and I'm not looking forward to it, but something I am looking forward to is rocking my FOCO at Citizens Bank Park this year. FOCO, they make the best gear for the most legendary fans. Click the link in the description or the bio. Save 10% off any in-stock item at FOCO. Well, Matt Brown, I'll tell you, not just could you be rocking your FOCO at opening day, which opening day 12 days away, home opener about 2 weeks away. You'll be rocking it August 1st as Phillies legends Jimmy Rollins and Ed Wade are going into the Phillies Wall of Fame. And finally, we're inducting guys from the 2000s and the 2008 Phillies. Jimmy Rollins, the guy the leadoff hitter on that team, the leader of that team, is the perfect guy to be leading it off.
I 100% agree. Jimmy Rollins 100% deserves to be in the Phillies Wall of Fame, excuse me. He was the quote-unquote captain of the Phillies during their 2000 run, in my opinion. I know the Phillies didn't really name captains since Schmidt, which is, I honestly think it's something they should bring back. I think it's really cool to have a captain on your team. You could take your lead. I know it's more of a hockey thing and a football thing, but I kind of like having the captain thing on like jersey. I think it'd be cool. Bryce Harper obviously would be the one right now. But anyway, Jimmy Rollins was the quote-unquote captain of the Phillies back then. He was the guy. He was the glue guy. He was the guy that brought everybody together. You know, he was the guy at the top of the order that always was getting hits. Jimmy Rollins is such a great person to be the first guy. Pat Burrell was obviously the first technical guy from the 08 team, but this feels like the first like guy. You know, it's hard to like explain, but this feels like the first moving domino of the 08 team getting the respect that they deserve. I honestly think a lot of the 08 team is going to get inducted because you kind of see it with the 1980 team. Guys like Bake McBride are getting in from the 1980 team. No offense to Bake McBride, but he really wasn't here for that long as a Philly. There have been guys that have been Phillies for way longer in the 08 team and around the late 2000s who won a World Series and helped contributed a lot. So this is the first domino of the guys that are going to fall. Guys like Rollins, Utley, Howard, Hamels, obviously all of them. Carlos Ruiz will eventually get in one day. Shane Victorino, in my opinion, another one. I don't know how Brad Lidge isn't in at this point. Like, he seems like a perfect guy to have in there. Brian Madsen. I even think guys like Jason Worth will be someone who could get in one day. So overall, Joe Blanton, another one too, maybe. Like Brett Myers as well. Like those kind of seem like the guys that could get in as a whole, but a lot of those guys are going to get in on their own and have great ceremony because they were Phillies for a long time and contributed a lot to the team. But back to J-Roll. Jimmy Rollins 100% deserves this. He's the franchise's hit leader all time. He's the best shortstop in the history of this team. I don't care about any arguments. He is number one by far, probably about in that top 7 to 8 range, Phillies all time, which you're a top 10 player for a franchise. You deserve to be in their Wall of Fame 100%.
Yeah.
I honestly argue that he should maybe have his number retired one day. I know they only say that for guys who are in the Hall of Fame, but Jimmy Rollins is such a great player. He was such a great person for this team. And in my opinion, one of the perfect people to have now inducted in the Phillies Wall of Fame. And then Ed Wade as well. He's someone who I shouldn't say doesn't deserve to get in, but he really never, the only thing he really did was just he's credited with building the core that they had, which is a big thing. And he also helped lead them into the new stadium. But I shouldn't say Ed Wade doesn't deserve, but it's just kind of like, we're putting GMs in who build a core. It's kind of not that great. But again, he did help build this core. He helped all the guys I just said who were going to be Wall of Famers as well. Bring them in, the Howards, the Hamels, the Rollins, the Utleys, the Brett Myers. So having them all there is really good. But this is a really good Phillies Wall of Fame class that they're having this year. And I hope that for the next couple of years, they keep doing it more and more like this.
Yeah, I think we're finally entering the 08 team. Well, Chase Utley will be in there, Ryan Howard. But who could they do next? I feel like Cole Hamels had a ceremony last year, kind of a little bit too new for him, unless they are going down with Utley and Howard to start us off. Of course, Brad Lidge, you mentioned Carlos Ruiz as well. There's a lot of guys that they are going to point to here, but J-Roll feels like a good guy to start us off. That is August 1st. That's a Friday. They usually do these on Saturdays. They're doing it on a Friday, so I'm not really happy about that. I prefer it to be on a Saturday, but it is what it is.
No, it's all right. It'll be a good series late in this year. I'm really interested to see what like his plaque like. I love reading the plaques behind in left field whenever I go to games. I like reading some of them. Some of the guys I really don't know, but I love to read the J-Roll one. I love to just read all about him, what he has to say, and who I think could be next. I think next year is going to be a Ryan Howard. I really think they're finally getting the big piece in there. Him or Utley, I think it's a good bet to have one of those next.
Yeah, it might be Utley since he left the Phillies before Howard. Maybe. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, you mentioned Jimmy Rollins getting his number retired. All three of them are going to get their number retired. Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, and Chase Utley. They're all going to get their numbers retired. So sometime in the next few years, I think it's a little fresh. Maybe they'll wait for one of them to get into the Hall of Fame, and then they'll do it because I know the Phillies like to do the Hall of Fame thing, even though, they kind of broke that with Dick Allen a little bit. Originally, now he is a Hall of Famer. So all the Phillies retired numbers are all Hall of Famers. So we'll see what the kind of timetable could be with them getting their numbers retired. But it's definitely going to happen. I'll tell you, it's definitely going to happen. There will definitely be an 11, 26, and 6. I mean, nobody's worn those numbers since then.
Yeah.
So
6 is a tough one, man. I feel like he just needed to play a little bit longer. I love Ryan Howard, but man, that's a tough one. I think Chase Utley's 100% going to get in. I think J-Roll should too, but man, number retiring, it's a tough thing. But I think Howard could get it one day. But it's like you said, nobody's worn those numbers since, and there's a reason for that as well.
Yeah, those don't come by accident. Max Kepler, when he originally came over, was listed as 26. He's wearing 17 now. Mm-hmm. So he definitely no one wearing 26. Of the current Phillies right now, who could get their numbers retired? I feel like 3 we may never see again. 45 with how Wheeler's going right now is possible. I feel like that kind of might be it.
27 is another one too with Nola. I mean, yeah. He's been kind of a stud for this team the last almost a decade now. That's insane to think about. It comes down to win a little bit more. I'd love to see a Cy Young from Wheeler to etch his name into Phillies history like that. I definitely think he could. 3 is pretty much. I think Harper could retire tomorrow. I still think he's getting everything the city's ever wanted to give him. Number retired Hall of Fame spot, which is crazy to say that. Other than that, it's going to take some time. I would say, JT's is a maybe with number 10. No. I don't know though. Not yet. He's still got some things to do. Stott, Bohm, and Turner, they are still got a lot of years left, hopefully, for this team. So we'll see about that. But there's a couple guys that definitely could get in now. I think Harper's 100%. We're going to see. You got in your background the 34 back there with Halladay. I love the arch thing with the numbers they have at the ballpark. I definitely think we're going to be seeing a 3 sitting outside of Citizens Bank Park one time in the next hopefully 15 years, maybe longer.
Yeah, we'll see what the timetable is with that. But something new to the ballpark this year. We got a video via @Dude Sweet Dave on X. CBP. Well, bring your sunglasses this year, even if it's a night game. We're going fully digital.
Couple weeks before opening season, and just look at the renovations going on, rebuilding the wall out left, but they still have the sponsors up. I mean, look at the dugout. There is no dugout. They're going to be here, March 31st is opening day. Let's go Phils.
So you saw throughout the level, like where the screens are wrapping around, the left field wall looks like it could become partially digital. Behind home plate is now fully digital. I remember we went on the field in December for the Phillies holiday thing. Those screens behind home plate, they were gone. And the dugout is kind of a big one. There is no dugout right now. So that could be a screen as well. It is all digital, and it's all about the money. But they had some trouble spending in the offseason this year. But they're definitely bringing money in with all these new sponsorships they're going to be getting.
No, 100%. And it's the kind of the thing they've been doing with Citizens Bank. I've noticed it over the last 7-8 years. They tried little by little to not improve, I would say, but have new things throughout the ballpark each year after year, whether it's a new scoreboard, new places to stand in the actual seating area. Right field, when they got rid of the out-of-town scoreboard, the old one, oh, God rest in peace, I miss that thing to this day. But with the digital scoreboard like that, there's the new small scoreboard in right field. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They replaced that, made it a little bit bigger. Now behind the plate, they're having the new ads that are going to be rolling. I really hope they're not too bright on TV. We'll have to see when they come home how bright they are. But yeah, little by little, they try and make new improvements / renovations to it. And I honestly think it's because they like Citizens Bank Park, and crazy to think enough, it's getting to the point where Citizens Bank Park is getting to be one of the older stadiums in the, not even really older stadium in the league, because there's old stadiums, but a lot of stadiums, only last 30 years for baseball, and people just build brand new ones. So I don't think that the Phillies are going to want to move out of Citizens Bank Park anytime soon, but in about a decade from now, when it gets to about 30 years old, is when everybody's going to say, well, it might be time for a new stadium. It might be time to move to a new part of South Philly, or maybe, move to the center city, Chinatown, and play baseball games there, because apparently that's where people like to have stadiums. But anyway, yeah, so I think they're just trying to improve things so that they can keep the stadium, feel new and renovated every single year, and just keep making it seem like Dream ballpark. I think it's one of the best ballparks in baseball, whether they touch it or not. I think the stadium they have right now is one of the best overall in baseball. So, despite making these renovations, I think it'll just bring more money in, and hopefully that it could lead to more championships with this team.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I was always a big fan of the aesthetic of Citizens Bank Park before 2022, I guess you could say, where it was not a ton of sponsorships. It was kind of a clean ballpark, and it was just it looked nice. And now you look at it now, and there are screens all over the place. There are sponsorships all over the place. It feels like especially when they got rid of the out-of-town scoreboard, CBP felt like it kind of lost a little bit of its charm.
I agree.
And it kind of now, with the screens behind home plate, it's becoming corporate. I went to Yankee Stadium for the first time a few years ago, and all the ads all over the place, it was so corporate. CBP is starting to become Corporate Bank Park America, or Corporate Bank Park. Yeah, Corporate Bank, Citizens Bank, Corporate Citizens Bank Park. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it was just it's becoming full of ads, and I don't love it. I don't love it. It doesn't make me feel great, but hopefully, if they're getting screens down left field, they're able to rotate, and they can keep a little bit more of the out-of-town scoreboard in right field. But we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's bringing in money and the Phillies want to sign some people, I won't
complain about it one bit. I think if it brings more free agents in, they got some money that they got to pay this offseason. So we'll see who they decide to bring back, and maybe those sponsors bring in enough money to do that.
Maybe. We'll see. But Matt, thank you for coming on today. We'll talk next week. And anything you got to say before you get out?
Nothing about that. Just can't wait for Phillies baseball. Birds, have a great offseason. Keep doing what you're doing. And let's go Auburn basketball.
All right. You can read Matt Brown at phillysportsports.com and follow him at Matt_Brown63. Thank you to him for coming on. That's going to do it for our show today. Light sports night in Philadelphia sports. Hurricanes and Flyers at 7 o'clock at the Wells Fargo. So that's going to do it from us here at the Phillies Sports Hour. If you like the show, make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. If you ever miss a live Philly Sports Hour, you can go listen to all podcast sites, and it always sticks up on YouTube. Follow us on all social medias. Follow me on Twitter at Goldstein and PSR. This has been the Philly Sports Hour, March 5th, 2005. Thanks for watching.
Swing and a drive, left field. It's deep. It's gone. And it is gone. Yes. It is bedlam at the bank. It's to the doctor. Yes, he's got it. Here he comes. Way back to me. It is Cleveland slammed up. And the doctor made a sensational play. Rollins front, the front, and they score! And Giroux got it.